Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining me. Have you ever felt that your worth was measured by the numbers in your bank account? That moment when you're treated like royalty for what you have, only to be discarded like yesterday's news when fortune fades? This is the story of Serena, who lived through that exact nightmare. Her husband, Adrian, and his mother, Eleanor, thought her family had lost everything. With smug satisfaction, they publicly denounced her and declared their divorce, believing she was now a burden. But they were blind to a colossal secret. At the very moment they cast her out, Serena became the one who held the keys to their entire world. She was the silent architect of their fate. How did this stunning reversal come to be? Let's dive in. That morning began like any other in the luxurious penthouse Serena shared with Adrian and Eleanor. Sunlight streamed through the panoramic windows as Serena carefully prepared Eleanor's favorite breakfast, Eggs Benedict with hollandaise sauce made from scratch and freshly squeezed orange juice. "Good morning, Eleanor. Breakfast is ready. Adrian will be down shortly," Serena said warmly. But Eleanor, perched on the plush sofa, was frozen, her eyes locked on the massive television screen. The news anchor's voice cut through the quiet like a knife. We interrupt with breaking financial news. The Ethelred Corporation, a longtime titan of industry, has filed for bankruptcy this morning. Federal investigators have uncovered alleged widespread fraud among its top executives. The founding family is facing billions in debt, and all assets have been seized. Crash! Eleanor hurled her porcelain coffee cup to the floor, shards skittering around Serena's feet. "Serena!" she shrieked. "Explain this! Fraud? Bankruptcy? Ran?" Inside, Serena remained calm. This was all part of her father's strategic plan to root out corruption, a secret she had to protect at all costs. But on the outside, she had to play her part. I don't understand," she stammered, feigning shock. "I spoke with father yesterday. Everything was fine." "Don't touch me," Eleanor snapped, swatting away Serena's comforting hand. "Your parents are paupers. Do you know what this will do to Adrian's career?" Adrian walked in, yawning. "What's all the noise?" "Your wife's family are criminals!" Eleanor cried, dragging him to the TV. "We're ruined by association!" Adrian's face morphed from sleepiness to pure panic. "Sovina, is this true?" His voice trembled not with concern, but with fear for his own status. "It seems to be," she whispered, head bowed. "Damn it, there goes my promotion!" He spat, his gaze turning icy. "The board will never promote the son-in-law of a fraud." "Adrian, please, this is a family crisis," Serena pleaded, but her words fell on deaf ears. "Starting today," Eleanor declared, "you are cut off. No more allowance. We won't be dragged down with you." "Give me your credit cards," Adrian demanded coldly. "I'm canceling them. We have to be smart about this." Serena's heart shattered. In mere minutes, the masks had slipped, revealing the gold diggers beneath. Their love was a transaction, and her account was now empty. As she crouched to clean the broken porcelain, a sharp piece nicked her palm. The physical pain was nothing compared to the betrayal tearing through her. "All right, Adrian. All right, Eleanor," she vowed silently. "You've shown me who you are when I'm down. Don't expect to see me when I rise again." The following week was a descent into hell. Serena was treated as a living servant. One morning, Adrian threw a few crumpled bills at her. "Here's $200 for groceries this month. Make it work." "Adrian, this isn't enough for 3 people," she protested. "Then be creative," he shot back. "Sell your designer clothes and bags. Stop being a parasite." The final insult came when Eleanor's guest, a wealthy socialite named Bianca, visited. Dripping in diamonds and disdain, Bianca was everything they now thought Serena was not. Later that night, Serena saw a notification on Adrian's phone from Bianca Star. Such a shame a man like you is tied to someone so plain. When are we having dinner alone? Your mother approves. When confronted, Adrian was vicious. It's called networking. Bianca is a breath of fresh air. Unlike you, who is just a financial burden. If you don't like it, leave. But remember, you have nowhere to go. That night, Serena didn't cry. She retrieved a hidden burner phone and sent a single message to her father's most trusted advisor, Mr. Thorne. Expedite the acquisition. I want every piece of evidence on Adrian's embezzlement. Let him fly high, so the fall will be that much harder. The day of the divorce announcement arrived. Eleanor threw a lavish party, a cruel celebration of Serena's downfall. Dressed in her simplest dress, Serena was ordered to serve the guests, who whispered and sneered at her. With the entire family gathered, Adrian stood to make his announcement. "Everyone," he began, puffing out his chest, "I can no longer carry the burden of my wife's family's shame and debt. Therefore, in front of all of you, I declare myself divorced from Serena. She is to leave this house tonight." The room erupted in applause. Eleanor hugged Bianca. "Finally, my son is free." Adrian looked at Serena, expecting tears. Instead, she stood tall, a faint, unreadable smile on her lips. "Thank you, Adrian," she said, her voice clear and steady. "Thank you for setting me free." Just then, a chorus of dings and buzzes filled the room. Phones lit up with a high-priority company-wide email. Urgent. Ethelred Holdings has completed a 100% acquisition of Titan Ventures. Effective immediately. The new CEO and sole proprietor is Serena Ethelred. His phone clattered to the floor. That bankruptcy was a strategic move, Serena announced, her voice ringing with authority. "A test to see who our true allies were. It seems I found the snakes in my own garden," she continued. Mr. Thorne entered with security and police officers. "Mr. Thorne," Serena commanded, "please read the audit findings." "Of course, Madam CEO. Our forensic audit has uncovered that Adrian embezzled over $400,000, funneling it to accounts linked to Miss Bianca for her lavish lifestyle." Bianca shrieked as police moved to handcuff her. Adrian fell to his knees. "Serena, please, I take it back. I love you." "Love?" she replied, stepping away from his grasp. "You divorced that concept 5 minutes ago." She then turned to Eleanor. "And you said my family wasn't on your level anymore. You were right." Mr. Thorne produced another document. "This is a foreclosure notice. This penthouse was mortgaged by Adrian to cover his brother's gambling debts. You have 1 hour to vacate." The party was over, as Adrian and Bianca were led away in handcuffs, and a wailing Eleanor was escorted out. Serena walked out of the penthouse, a free woman. 1 month later, in her stunning corner office, Mr. Thorne updated her. Adrian and Bianca were sentenced to prison. Eleanor and the brother were living in a cramped apartment, their lives in tatters. An unknown number flashed on Serena's phone, a call from prison. She blocked it without a second thought. "Let's go, Mr. Thorne," she said, standing up. "I'm having lunch with my parents. I'm craving a real home-cooked meal." She stepped into the elevator, leaving the ghosts of her past behind. The road ahead was bright, and she was finally in the driver's seat, heading toward a future built on her own strength and success. The sleek black car glided through the city, a silent capsule of peace amidst the urban chaos. Serena watched the skyscrapers blur past, their gleaming surfaces a world away from the cramped, greasy kitchen where Eleanor now frittered her days away. There was no satisfaction in the thought, only a quiet, final closure. "Your parents are expecting you, Madam CEO," Mr. Thorne said from the front seat. "They've prepared your favorite, beef Wellington." A genuine smile, the first that felt unburdened in years, touched Serena's lips. Then we shouldn't keep them waiting. Lunch at the Ethelred estate was a balm to her soul. The grand house, now buzzing with the quiet confidence of restored power, felt more like home than the cold penthouse ever had. Her father, Charles, looked years younger. The stress of the fabricated bankruptcy and its very real aftermath finally lifted. "You handled it with more grace than I could have mustered, my dear," he said, raising a glass of vintage Bordeaux. Exposing the embezzlement was one thing, but allowing the legal system to take its course without public gloating, your mother and I are proud. "It wasn't about grace, Father," Serena replied, setting down her fork. "It was about efficiency. They are irrelevant now. My focus is on the future of Ethelred Holdings and Titan Ventures. We have a unique opportunity to merge the best of both companies." This was her new purpose, not revenge, but rebuilding. She spent the next few months immersed in the business, streamlining operations, promoting talented, ethical employees, and launching a new corporate responsibility initiative. The Ethelred Phoenix Fund, as the press dubbed it, was her brainchild, a venture dedicated to supporting small businesses owned by women who had overcome adversity. Meanwhile, in the shadows of the city, the remnants of her old life crumbled. Adrian, stripped of his designer suits and ego, found prison to be a brutal equalizer. The man who once valued connections now had none. His appeals to his mother for commissary money went unanswered. She had nothing to give. Bianca, in a separate facility, gave a tearful interview to a tabloid show, painting herself as a manipulated victim. The public sympathy was minimal. Eleanor, once the queen of her social circle, was now utterly alone. The friends who had laughed with her at the divorce party now crossed the street to avoid her. The sale of her fried pies was meager, the humiliation a constant, bitter seasoning. One rainy afternoon, driven by a desperate, shameful hope, she mustered the courage to stand outside the gleaming Ethelred Holdings tower. She waited for hours, a shrunken figure in a damp coat, until Serena emerged, surrounded by her new executive team. Eleanor rushed forward, ignoring the security guards who moved to intercept her. "Serena, please," she cried, her voice ragged. "I was wrong. I see that now. You were always too good for us. Please, have mercy on an old woman. A job, anything. I can clean your office." Serena stopped, her team pausing behind her. She looked at Eleanor, truly looked at her. The spiteful glint in her eyes was gone, replaced by a hollow desperation. There was no anger left in Serena's heart, only a profound, weary pity. "Eleanor," she said, her voice calm and firm, "mercy isn't a job in my office. It's the fact that I never pressed charges against you for theft or emotional abuse, which I could have. The mercy is that you are free, and you are alive. What you do with that freedom is now up to you." She turned to Mr. Thorne. "Please give her the information for the city's social services and the women's shelter our foundation supports. They can help her find legitimate work and housing." Then, without a backward glance, Serena got into her waiting car. She did not block Eleanor out of malice, but because she had finally, completely blocked her from her mind. A year later, Ethelred Holdings was stronger than ever, its stock price and public reputation at an all-time high. Serena was featured on the cover of Forbes, not as a victim of a dramatic story, but as a visionary leader. The article caught Adrian's eye in the prison common room. He stared at her picture, composed, powerful, and radiantly happy. The weight of his regret was a physical pain, sharper than any inmate's threat. He had traded a diamond for a shard of glass, and the cut would never heal. On a bright Saturday morning, Serena stood before a small, intimate gathering at the opening of the first Phoenix Fund incubator space. The room was filled with ambitious women with brilliant ideas, their eyes shining with hope. As I stand here today, Serena addressed the crowd, I'm not thinking about where I was, but about where we are all going. Adversity doesn't define you, it forges you. It teaches you who you are, and more importantly, who you are not. You are not your circumstances. You are the architects of your comeback. After the speeches, a young woman approached her, clutching a business plan. Ms. Aethelred, she said nervously, your story, it gave me the courage to leave a terrible situation and start this. Thank you. Serena smiled, placing a reassuring hand on the woman's arm. Thank you for having the courage to build. That's the most powerful part of the story. What comes next? That evening, as she dined with her parents, her father placed a small velvet box on the table. This belonged to your grandmother, he said. She built a small empire from a single dress shop in a time when women weren't supposed to do such things. She always said you had her fire. I think it's time you had this. Inside was a simple, elegant pendant, a phoenix carved from a single piece of ruby, rising from golden flames. Serena fastened it around her neck. It felt not like an ornament, but like a birthright. Her journey was complete. The betrayed wife was gone. The vengeful schemer was gone. All that remained was Serena Ethelred, CEO, philanthropist, and finally, the unshakable master of her own destiny. The past was ash, and from it she had truly and forever risen. The ruby phoenix felt warm against Serena's skin, a constant, comforting weight. It was more than jewelry. It was a compass, a reminder of the fire she had walked through and the rebirth that followed. In the months that followed, the pendant became her signature, a silent emblem of her leadership philosophy. Through adversity, we rise. Her work with the Phoenix Fund became her passion. She wasn't a distant benefactor. She was a mentor. She reviewed business plans, connected entrepreneurs with suppliers, and hosted monthly strategy sessions where the founders could brainstorm and support one another. She saw herself in their struggles, the self-doubt, the financial anxiety, the fear of betrayal. But now she had the power to be the ally she never had. One of the fund's first success stories was Saffron and Sage, an organic skincare line started by a soft-spoken but fiercely determined woman named Anya, who had escaped an abusive marriage. When a major retailer agreed to stock her products, Anya broke down in tears during her meeting with Serena. I never believed I could do this on my own, Anya whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Serena leaned forward, her gaze steady and kind. But you're not on your own, Anya. You never were. You had yourself, and now you have a whole community behind you. Remember that. This was her new currency, not wealth or power, but empowerment. The business world took notice. The narrative around her shifted from the heiress who got her revenge to the CEO who builds empires by lifting others. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings against Adrian and Bianca reached their final unceremonious end. All appeals were exhausted. As he was led back to his cell after the final rejection, a fellow inmate shoved a worn copy of a business magazine into his hands. Saw your ex-wife on the cover. Pretty lady. You're a damn fool, man. Adrian stared at the cover. Serena was photographed at the opening of a new tech wing at the city's art museum, another of her philanthropic ventures. She was laughing, the ruby phoenix clearly visible at her throat, her arm linked with that of a renowned architect known for his integrity and genius. They looked like equals. They looked happy. A wave of nausea so profound washed over him that he had to sit down. He had not just lost a wife. He had lost a universe of possibility, and he had traded it for a cheap watch in the hollow flattery of a social climber. The realization was a life sentence all its own. Eleanor, through the city's social services, found work as a receptionist at a small dental office. It was mundane and humbling, answering phones and scheduling appointments for people who had no idea she once presided over penthouse brunches. The work was honest, and the slow, predictable rhythm of the days began to sand down the sharp edges of her bitterness. One afternoon, she saw a news segment on the waiting room TV about the Phoenix Fund. There was Serena, speaking eloquently about second chances. Eleanor quickly looked away, a hot flush of shame creeping up her neck. She realized Serena's mercy hadn't been weakness. It was a strength so profound, Eleanor couldn't even comprehend it. She had been spared, not because she deserved it, but because Serena had chosen to be the bigger person. The weight of that knowledge was her final and most fitting punishment. 2 years after the divorce, the Aethelred name was synonymous with innovation and ethical leadership. Serena was invited to give the keynote address at a global economic forum. On the stage, under the bright lights, she was the picture of calm authority. "And so, we must remember," she concluded, her voice resonating through the hall, "that true resilience is not just about surviving the storm. It is about learning to dance in the rain, and then building an ark so others can dance with you. Our greatest legacy will not be the empires we build for ourselves, but the foundations we lay for others to build upon." The applause was thunderous. As she left the stage, she was met by the architect, Elias, who had been waiting in the wings. He took her hand, his eyes full of not just admiration, but deep, unwavering respect. "My father would have loved that speech," he said quietly. "He always said the measure of a leader is the growth they inspire in others." Later, as they walked along the moonlit harbor of the host city, Elias stopped and turned to her. "Serena, what you've built, who you've become, it's extraordinary. But I have to ask, after everything that happened?" Serena looked out at the dark water, the lights of the city reflecting on its surface. She thought of Adrian's transactional love, her parents' unwavering support, and the solitary strength she had forged in the fire. She turned back to Elias, a soft, sure smile on her face. "There's room," she said, "but not for just anyone. It has to be for someone who doesn't want to stand in my shadow or have me stand in theirs. Someone who wants to stand side by side in the same light." Elias smiled, lifting their joined hands. "I was hoping you'd say that." The story of Serena and Adrian was a closed book, its final lesson learned. But as Serena looked toward the future, with a good man by her side and a world of possibilities ahead, she knew the most exciting chapters of her life were only just beginning. She had not just completed her comeback, she had transcended it, becoming a legend of grace, power, and unwavering resilience. The collaboration with Elias was more than a merger of hearts. It was a fusion of visions. His architectural firm, Verve Dynamics, specialized in sustainable, community-centric designs. And together with Ethelred Holdings, they began winning bids for urban renewal projects that were as profitable as they were transformative. They didn't just build buildings, they built ecosystems, parks, community centers, and affordable housing units woven into the fabric of their commercial developments. One evening, reviewing plans for a mixed-use complex, Elias pointed to a central courtyard. This space shouldn't just be for passing through, it should tell a story. Serena, the ruby phoenix glinting in the lamplight, smiled. A story of resilience, she suggested. A garden, not just any garden, but one curated by the Phoenix Fund entrepreneurs. Anya, saffron, and sage can provide aromatic herbs. That young urban farmer we funded can design the edible sections. It becomes a living, growing testament to their success. Elias looked at her, his admiration plain. You see the potential in everything, don't you? I've learned that potential is often buried under hardship, she replied. It just needs someone to believe it's there. This belief was about to be tested in the most personal of ways. A letter arrived, not to her office, but to her private home. The handwriting was shaky, unfamiliar. Inside, on a simple sheet of lined paper, was a message from Adrian. Serena, I know I have no right to write. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know that's a bridge I burned. I'm writing because I've had nothing but time to think. I was a hollow man, defined by what I owned and who I knew. I see that now. I heard about the Phoenix Fund. What you're doing, it's real. It's the opposite of everything I stood for. In here, I've been teaching a literacy class for other inmates. It's the first thing I've done in my life that doesn't benefit me. It's the only thing that makes me feel solid. She read the letter once, then twice. She felt a quiet stir of emotions, not anger, not longing, but a distant, profound sadness for the life they could have had if he had been this self-aware years ago. She showed the letter to Elias. He's trying to find his own way to rise from the ashes, Elias observed, his tone neutral, not threatened. He is, Serena agreed. She folded the letter and placed it in a drawer. She would not reply. Any response would be a threat pulled. A connection reestablished, and that chapter was definitively closed. But she allowed herself a moment to hope, for his sake and for the inmates he was teaching, that his transformation was genuine. Her silence was her final gift to him, the space to grow without the shadow of his past looming over him. This personal closure seemed to unlock a new level of professional freedom. Serena's next move was her boldest yet. She announced the Legacy Fellowship, a global competition for social entrepreneurs. The winner would receive a $1 million grant and a year of intensive mentorship from her and her network. The announcement gala was the event of the season, as Serena stood at the podium, flanked by her beaming parents and a proud Elias. She looked out at the audience, a sea of faces that included titans of industry, the thriving founders from her Phoenix Fund, and eager new applicants. For a long time, my name was associated with a story of downfall and revenge, she began, her voice clear and confident. But I stand here today to tell you that revenge is a cold and fleeting victory. The true lasting power lies in purpose. My purpose is no longer just to lead a company, but to champion a legacy of ethical growth and human potential. Her gaze swept the room, landing for a moment on Anya, then on the young urban farmer, on Mr. Thorne, who gave a slight, proud nod. Our legacy is not written in the stone of our buildings or the digits in our accounts. It is written in the opportunities we create, the dignity we restore, and the lives we empower to soar. That is the empire I am building. As the crowd rose in a standing ovation, Elias leaned over and whispered, "You know, for someone who doesn't want a legacy, you're building a pretty magnificent one." Serena smiled, touching the ruby phoenix at her neck. It was no longer just a symbol of her past rise. It had become a beacon for the future she was creating. A future not defined by the pain she had endured, but illuminated by the hope she now fostered. The years following the Legacy Fellowship announcement were a golden age for Ethelred Holdings. Under Serena's leadership, the company didn't just grow, it evolved. It became a case study in conscious capitalism, consistently proving that ethical business practices could yield staggering profits and profound social impact. The mixed-use complex, with its community garden, named the Phoenix Commons, became a landmark, a bustling hub that perfectly encapsulated her philosophy. Serena and Elias married in a quiet, elegant ceremony at her parents' estate. There were no society page dramatics, only genuine joy. Their partnership was a source of strength and balance. He challenged her artistic sensibilities. She grounded his grand visions in operational reality. Together, they were unstoppable. The Legacy Fellowship, now an annual event, had unearthed and nurtured groundbreaking innovations, from a revolutionary water purification system for developing nations to an AI platform that connected isolated seniors with their communities. Serena's empire of empowerment was no longer a metaphor. It was a tangible global force. One crisp autumn morning, a decade after her divorce, Serena sat in her sun-drenched office. Mr. Thorne, his hair now more silver than black, entered with a file. The familiar glint in his eye signaled a significant development. "We've received a submission for the fellowship," he began, placing the file on her desk. "It's from a new foundation's initiative." Serena opened the file. The proposal was for a program that provided vocational training and counseling for formerly incarcerated individuals, helping them reintegrate into society and start their own small service businesses: plumbing, electrical work, landscaping. The business plan was meticulous, the financial projections conservative but sound, and the social impact metrics were profound. It was exactly the kind of holistic, dignity-driven work the fellowship was designed to support. Then she saw the name of the founder and program director, Adrian Walsh. She leaned back in her chair, a slow, thoughtful breath escaping her lips. She hadn't heard his name in years. The shaky letters had stopped long ago. She looked at the attached photo. It was him, but not the man she knew. His face was thinner, the lines around his eyes etched by hard-won wisdom, not stress. He stood in a workshop, surrounded by men in tradesmen's clothes, a whiteboard filled with business equations behind them. He looked at peace. "He was released 6 months ago for good behavior," Mr. Thorne said quietly, his tone neutral. The parole board was impressed with his work on the inmate literacy program. He used his small stipend and a loan from a nonprofit to start this. "What's your assessment, Charles?" she asked, using his first name as she had for years now. "The proposal is one of the top 3 we've seen this cycle," he replied without hesitation. "It's scalable, addresses a critical need, and the founder has unique, first-hand insight into the problem. The risk is his background, but the potential reward is significant." Serena closed the file. "Schedule him for a finalist interview. He'll be treated exactly like every other candidate." "Of course, Madam CEO." The day of the finalist interviews was a whirlwind. Serena, Elias, and a panel of experts from the foundation spent the day grilling brilliant, passionate entrepreneurs. Adrian was scheduled last. When he entered the conference room, a subtle shift occurred. He was dressed in a simple, clean suit, a world away from the Brioni armor he used to wear. His eyes met Serena's for a brief second, not with a plea, but with a calm, respectful acknowledgement, before he took his seat. His presentation was flawless. He spoke not from a textbook, but from experience. He talked about the psychological walls ex-convicts face, the lure of recidivism, and the transformative power of owning one's labor. He didn't shy away from his past. He used it to contextualize his mission. "The greatest barrier isn't learning a skill," he said, his voice steady. "It's learning to believe you are capable of creating value after being told for so long that you are only a drain. I know because I was that man." During the Q&A, Elias asked a sharp question about long-term sustainability. Adrian answered thoughtfully, his plan robust. The other panelists probed his financials and scalability. He was prepared for every question. Finally, it was Serena's turn. The room grew quiet. Mr. Walsh, she began, her voice cool and professional. Your proposal is impressive, but this fellowship awards not just funding, but a platform. It associates our name and the names of all our founders with yours. Given your very public history, how do you propose to manage the narrative? How can we be sure this isn't an attempt at personal rehabilitation rather than a sincere, long-term commitment to this cause? Adrian nodded, accepting its weight. Madam CEO, he said, looking directly at her, I cannot change the past. My crimes and my failures are a matter of public record. I am not here to rehabilitate my name. I am here because I have found a problem I am uniquely qualified to help solve. The men and women in my program don't care about my past. They care that I understand their present. If the association with my history is too great a liability for the fellowship, I understand completely. The work will continue regardless. This initiative is not about my legacy. It's about theirs. It was the perfect answer. Humble, honest, and utterly focused on the mission. Serena saw the nods from her panel. She herself felt a final, quiet piece of her own history settle into place. The arrogant boy was truly gone. In his place was a man who had found his purpose in the rubble of his life. Thank you, Mr. Walsh, Serena said. The committee will deliberate. The deliberation was intense. Some panelists argued that Adrian's past was too great a PR risk. Others, including Elias, argued that his redemption was the program's greatest strength. It was living proof of its own thesis. Serena listened to all arguments before casting the deciding vote. We started the Phoenix Fund on the principle that past circumstances do not define future potential, she stated. To reject this proposal because of the founder's past would be the height of hypocrisy. We judge on the merit of the work, and on merit, this is the strongest proposal we have. We are in the business of second chances. Let's act like it. New Foundations Initiative was awarded the Legacy Fellowship. The announcement was met with a media firestorm, as Serena knew it would. Headlines screamed, CEO awards ex-husband in stunning act of forgiveness, and from divorce to deal-making, the ultimate revenge. Serena refused all interviews on the topic. She released a single written statement. The Legacy Fellowship is awarded to the most promising social enterprise based on rigorous criteria. New Foundations Initiative exemplifies the transformative power of business. We are proud to support their vital work. She never spoke to Adrian directly. All communication was through the Foundation's program managers. It was the cleanest, most professional way to handle it. She had not forgiven him for the pain he caused the young woman she once was, but she had finally, completely released him. He was now just another founder in her portfolio, his past irrelevant to the work they were both now dedicated to. 5 more years flew by. Serena and Elias had a daughter, whom they named Ilara. After Serena's grandmother, the original entrepreneur with fire in her soul. Ilara was a bright, curious child, and their home was filled with laughter and love, a world away from the sterile tension of Serena's first marriage. On Ilara's 5th birthday, as the family relaxed in the garden of their country home, the little girl was playing with a set of wooden blocks. "Look, Mama, I'm building a tower," Ilara exclaimed, stacking them precariously high. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," Serena said, smiling. Suddenly, the tower wobbled and crashed. Ilara's face fell, her lower lip trembling. Serena knelt beside her, gathering her into a hug. "Oh, darling, that's okay. Every great builder has towers that fall. What matters is what you learn. See?" She pointed to the scattered blocks. "Now you know that the big, strong blocks need to be at the bottom to support the little ones at the top. That's called a foundation. Let's build it again, stronger this time." As she helped her daughter rebuild, Serena was struck by the simple truth of the moment. This was the essence of everything. It wasn't about never falling. It was about learning why you fell and having the courage to build again, wiser and more resilient than before. Her phone buzzed. It was a notification. The board of Aethelred Holdings had unanimously voted to establish the Serena Aethelred Chair for Ethical Leadership at her alma mater. It was the ultimate institutionalization of her legacy. She looked at Elias, who was watching them with a soft smile, and then at her daughter, who was now completely absorbed in creating a new, more stable structure. She had her answer. Her legacy wasn't just in the buildings, the companies, or the fellowships. It was in the lessons she would pass on. It was in the foundation of strength, integrity, and compassion she was building for her daughter. It was in the thousands of entrepreneurs she had empowered, who were now out in the world, building their own towers. Epilogue: The Phoenix's Perch. 20 years after the divorce, Serena stood on the terrace of the Aethelred Foundation's new global headquarters, a stunning building co-designed by Elias. Below her, the city she had helped reshape pulsed with life. The Phoenix Commons was a vibrant green heart in the urban landscape. Alara, now a sharp, idealistic young woman in her first year of university, stood beside her, the spitting image of her mother at that age. "It's incredible, Mom," Alara said, gazing at the view. "To think you built all this." "I didn't build it alone," Serena corrected gently, putting an arm around her daughter's shoulders. "I had a lot of help, and a few people who, without meaning to, showed me exactly who I didn't want to be." "Like Adrian Walsh?" Alara asked. She knew the outlines of the story. Serena nodded. "Yes, like him. His New Foundations initiative has helped over 5,000 people start new lives. He found his purpose. In a strange way, I'm grateful for the lesson." "And Grandma Eleanor?" Serena's gaze grew distant. Eleanor had passed away a few years prior, quietly, in a small apartment paid for by a modest pension. Serena had paid for the funeral, anonymously. It was a final act of closure, not for Eleanor, but for herself. She was a cautionary tale about the emptiness of a life lived for appearances. She died as she lived in the end, alone. But I hope she found some peace. Alara was silent for a moment. "It's a lot to live up to, you know? The great Serena Ethelred." Serena turned to her daughter, her eyes fierce with love. "Oh, my darling, you don't have to live up to me. You only have to live up to yourself. The world you inherit is different. Your challenges will be your own. Your towers will fall too. But you will have the one thing I had to learn the hard way, an unshakable foundation. You know your worth is not for sale. You know that real power lies in lifting others. Build on that, and you will build a legacy that will astonish even me." As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Serena Ethelred looked out at her kingdom, not of brick and mortar, but of hope, resilience, and human potential. The betrayed wife was a faded memory. The vengeful schemer was a ghost. The powerful CEO was a title. She was simply Serena, a woman who had been forged in fire, who had ruled with grace, and who was now passing the torch. The phoenix had not just risen. It had built a nest where countless other birds could take flight. And in the quiet contentment of that thought, her story found its perfect, complete ending.